Joining me now from Marion, Kansas, Convention of the States Regional Director David Schneider. David, before I ask you about your recent exploits in trying to convene an Article 5 Convention of the States, I want to go back to California. If California chooses to nullify the United States Constitution, and that's essentially what it is doing here, it must be held accountable. On the other hand, if California doesn't like the way immigration is settled in this country, it can change how immigration is directed by trying to change, if California chooses, trying to amend Article 1, Section 8 of the United States Constitution, which gives the Congress the power to regulate immigration. Maybe they want to change it to Governor Moonbeam regulates immigration in this country. I don't know. Would you agree?
Yeah, that is correct. I mean, they're trying to do things that are completely unconstitutional. So the only way they can get what they want to have done is to amend the United States Constitution. They're going about it completely wrong.
All right, yeah, the way they should be getting it done, we should say, the constitutional way. And as regional director, you represent many states, Nebraska, Kansas, South Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, but also Michigan. I understand that Michigan may be on its way toward possibly participating in an Article 5 Convention of the States.
That's correct. We filed our legislation about a month ago with HCRV, and we're working through the legislature now. We've actually passed through the committee already, and we're anticipating a vote probably in the next few weeks on the House floor.
Now,
so you bet.
What's the special sauce here? So far, in case folks aren't keeping score at home, there are a dozen states who have signed on to participate in a convention of the states. 34 per the Constitution are needed to trigger. So we're a little more than a third of the way there. What's happening in Michigan that's not happening in other states that haven't triggered?
Well, we've got a big movement right now. We've got a lot of conservatives that are lining up for this constitutional remedy that's going to limit the federal government, actually bypass the federal government in entirety, and call for a convention of states to propose amendments to the United States Constitution that place those further limits on the size, scope, and jurisdiction of the federal government.
And just to reset, for folks who are not familiar with this, an Article 5 Convention of the States, in this case, has a limited scope. The one that the states have signed on, the 12 states have signed on to so far, and that Michigan could be signing on to. It's a limited scope to make sure that there is this what people are calling runaway convention.
That's correct. It's very limited. It's on 3 subject matters. It's to limit the size, scope, and jurisdiction of the federal government, term limits on federal officials, and fiscal restraints on the federal government. So anything outside of those could not even be brought up at a convention. So, and we have a lot of fear that's out there in Michigan right now. People worried about this runaway scenario. So we're battling through that. We're working through the legislature, and we're going to get this thing done in Michigan.
Right, and some of the folks who say, hey, they could repeal the Second Amendment, for example. Well, per the Constitution, it takes 38 states to change the United States Constitution. So all you would need to do is find 13 states that would say, no, you're not going to abolish the Second Amendment. But when you drill down to a potential convention of the states that we're talking about here, beyond term limits, which possibly could apply to Congress and possibly the United States Supreme Court. We're talking about a balanced budget amendment, possibly repealing the 16th Amendment, for example, correct?
That is absolutely correct. And the 17th Amendment as well. 2 progressive era amendments that happened in 1913. We could look at rolling both of them back.
Now, in spring of this year, this was a very good spring for Article 5 Convention of the States because 4 states popped. They signed on to this: Arizona, North Dakota, Texas, and Missouri, in that order. You had a hand in each of these?
And three of those 4 were my states, you bet. So that was wonderful to have those come out of the central region. We're looking to add about 7 more out of my region next year.
So what did it? Is there a momentum factor here in terms of getting these states during the springtime and maybe continuing into the fall and into winter and then going into the new year? What's the secret here to continue the momentum? Because you don't want momentum to die in an effort like this.
Well, Michigan is really the linchpin right now because it's the only state that's still in session. The rest of the states come back in session in January and February. So we're looking at Michigan, which is a year-round legislature, moving that through the fall into the winter, gaining some momentum into the sessions for all the rest of those states.
Do you folks at the Convention of States look at things with an expiration date at all? In other words, can you keep pecking away at trying to get the 34 requisite states over 5, 10 years, or is there a time frame involved?
Most states pass it without an expiration, but the states can put an expiration on their call, and 2 states have thus far, Oklahoma being one of those and Missouri being the other. So some states have put expirations, but Graham, we've got to get this done in the next 5 years. So we're not too worried about expirations at this point. We know that we've got to get 34 states in the near future. Otherwise, we're in dire straits in America.
Yeah, the expiration date is on this country. It's off the constitutional tracks, and that's what a Convention of the States Article 5 convention is all about, trying to put this country back on its constitutional rails. David, thank you.
Sign the petition at cosaction.com and get as many of your friends and family to do the same. With your full address, your state legislators will know that you really are their constituents in their district. Our success depends on you, so we're inviting you to be part of history. Let's invoke the constitutional solution that's as big as the problem.